can't be a baby bottle manufacturer, know the process of how to make a baby bottle, know every chemical that goes into a baby bottle, and not know that you were essentially poisoning babies on every baby bottle and sippy cup. We should treat everyone with respect, but we should also not allow our judgment to be so clouded by political correctness that we can't explore the fact that because these chemicals are so ubiquitous in our food system and in our system, that they're not having a profound effect on humanity. Yo, what's up, a-holes? Welcome back to the Holistic A-Hole YouTube channel. My name is Eric Levi, and my mission is to empower you with the freshest, sickest, dopest health news so you can live an obnoxiously happy, healthy life. And if it's your first time here, please remember to hit the subscribe button with the little bell icon so you can get notified every single time a new Holistic A-Hole video gets dropped. And please, please, please smash that like button. It's no secret that in the world today, we're dealing with so many factors that are influencing our health, more factors than have ever been experienced by humans in the history of humanity, as far as we know. Of course, I don't know if there was a culture back, during like the Atlantis days or, pre-human civilization where humans did exist and we built these giant, magnificent cities and then were overtaken by aliens and the world started over and everything got uploaded to a cloud, but there was a dysfunction between the upload and the cloud, maybe some buffering, maybe the Wi-Fi went down, and then we just had to start all over again. We had to reboot. I don't know. That's a possibility. But as far as we know, what we're dealing with today in the 21st century is exposure to more chemicals, more outrageous stimulus than humans have ever been subjected to, and it's only getting incrementally worse as the years go on. And right now, one of the biggest realizations we're starting to have is the sheer negative influences of plastic on human health. So specifically, I'm talking about BPA. One of the main plastics or one of the main chemicals that you find in plastic. And it's no surprise that this chemical is so ubiquitous in humans right now because plastic is everywhere and it's been everywhere for really the last 50, 60 years. So a new study's come out that is actually talking about this thing and it's being printed all over the internet. Here it's on the Daily Mail. And you could see from the outrageous headline what they're trying to get you to think. So from the Daily Mail, humans are being exposed to 44 times more infertility-causing, cancer-linked gender-binding chemicals than first thought. Now, I love that headline because I think there is a lot of truth in it, but really the study and the paper they're talking about doesn't really go as far as to say that these chemicals are the cause of infertility or are the cause of, people's genders being a little scrambled. So, but what the paper is saying is that there is a link now, that they're finding a strong link, not only to these different endocrine-disrupting factors, but that the amount of BPA, specifically, that they're finding in these different plastics and that we're being exposed to it, that the human body is actually absorbing from the different materials, is actually upwards of 44 times more severe than we originally thought. So this is a link to the actual original study right here. It was published in The Lancet. And BPA have flawed analytical techniques, compromise risk assessments. So let's go through the write-up and see what they're talking about. Humans exposed to far more hormone-disrupting chemicals than previously thought, according to a new study. Patricia Hunt, the researcher at Washington State University who first discovered that BPA, a dangerous toxin in plastics, can cause cancer and other diseases and disorders, has now developed a more accurate method of measuring it. In a study published today, Dr. Hunt reveals the new tool shows the safe limit of BPA stipulated by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is flawed. In fact, it is 44 times higher than what Dr. Hunt considers safe. As a pure health skeptic, anytime I read something about the FDA and about how new research is disproving what the FDA originally thought, I'm not shocked Because the FDA is so influenced by industry. You can Google it. You can look all over the internet. There's a ton that's been written about the FDA's links to different corporations, to pharmaceutical industries, to food companies. I mean, it's really a corrupt organization, and it really is frightening how an organization like the FDA, who we entrust with our safety of food products that we as consumers just don't have the time to fully research, that what this organization is doing is allowing themselves to be completely corrupted and really kind of sloppy in the way they regulate things. And this is why science is so important. This is what we forget about science, is that if the FDA says that BPA is safe based on science, well, we can't allow that science to be the definitive science, because then that completely flies in the face of what science is supposed to be. Science is supposed to be a constant process of disproving previous hypotheses and conclusions. We should always be looking for ways to come up with questions that question the earlier science. So if the FDA decided 20, 30 years ago that a certain level of BPA was safe because they were using testing from 30, 40 years ago, of course now we know the way that technology is ramped up. We know how advanced, if anything, my access to technology is. You can only imagine what researchers and scientists have access to. Then we should allow those processes to be done. And it's no surprise that when you look at the amount of disease, when you look at the amount of endocrine problems that people are having in our society, when you look at the amount of hormonal issues that people are having in society, you have to wonder what is really going on. Have people always been this crazy? Have people always been this unstable? Have people always dealt with so much hormone dysregulation? Maybe, or maybe what we're being exposed to is something so new that the body is in just a sheer panic. So what we consider the safe limits, really, it's just the experimental model. It's just a hypothesis based on old technology. It needs to constantly be reevaluated, and that's what this study did. The study raises serious concerns about whether we've been careful enough about the safety of this chemical, Dr. Hunt, a corresponding author on the paper, said. What it comes down to is that the conclusions federal agencies have come to about how to regulate BPA may have been based on inaccurate measurements. The amount of BPA the FDA considers acceptable varies based on the product. Broadly, it claims that the chemicals are safe and that people are exposed to such low doses of them that they're not considered toxic. However, in 2012, it amended its regulations and banned the use of BPA in baby bottles and sippy cups. If you were a baby who used a bottle and a sippy cup before 2012, sorry, man, you are just a little bit out of luck, because we got exposed to it. We got exposed. It's just part of who we are now. It's just part of our genetic makeup. It's part of our physiological makeup. It's part of our biochemical makeup. We got exposed at the most vulnerable times in our humanity, when we were babies, when we were tiny, when our body didn't have the defense mechanism, when we didn't have a full detoxification system built in to our bodies, when our body is essentially still learning how to be a body. That's when we were getting exposed to so much BPA, to the point where the FDA had to make it so that that stuff could not be used anymore because it was so incredibly toxic to the human body. So just to think that one of the places they found it was in baby bottles and sippy cups, and we were exposed to that for so many years. And you have to know the manufacturers of these companies knew that for years. You cannot make your life about making baby bottles. You can't be a baby bottle manufacturer. Know the process of how to make a baby bottle, know every chemical that goes into a baby bottle, and not know that you were essentially poisoning babies on every baby bottle and sippy cup. It's unbelievable. She discovered that methodology used by the FDA to establish what is or isn't safe has been subject to scrutiny from a number of scientists. Dr. Hunt has led that charge. She discovered the way that the BPA, sometimes referred to as gender-bending chemicals, interfered with the production of sperm, eggs, and male and female chromosomes. Dr. Hunt has acknowledged that measuring humans' exposure to BPA is difficult, but argues that is all the reason to err on the side of caution. So in her latest work, she developed a new way to test just how much BPA people were exposed to and internalizing. So this is where things get real interesting, because now we're not just talking about, hey, is BPA good for you or bad for you? Oh, it's bad for you, so we should have less of it. But what is it really doing? What is it really doing in our system? And we have data, we have science that shows that it directly acts on your endocrine system. It directly acts on the system that controls your hormones, that controls the communication between all of your organs. It controls the how much stress hormone you put out, how much growth hormone you put out, how much testosterone, how much estrogen. And of course, we know from previous data that BPA is directly linked to estrogen. And when you have too much estrogen, you start experiencing what's known as estrogen dominance. And this is where your body can go into sheer haywire. This is where your body is not working right. This is where you start experiencing a lot of things like skin problems, mood disorders. You start experiencing weakness, fatigue. You start experiencing more susceptibility to cancer and metabolic disorders. It's a huge problem. Right? And so what happens is we become too afraid of estrogen in our culture. But you also do need estrogen. It is also a very important hormone in the body, which even men need a certain level of. But the problem is that this exposure to plastics and BPA has thrown off those ratios so much that now we're beginning to experience more of this. According to Dr. Hunt and her colleagues, most studies attempting to measure the amount of BPA in human urine have done so by putting BPA metabolites, compounds generated as the chemicals pass through the body, into a snail-based enzyme solution that is supposed to turn the compounds back to BPA itself. This is an indirect measure, according to the study published in the journal, The Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology. Instead, she and her team devised a way to assess the metabolites themselves directly. What they found was alarming. Not only was the disparity between the indirect measure and their direct on as wide as 44-fold, the higher the level of BPA, the greater the gulf between their measure and the one used by the FDA was. I hope this study will bring attention to the methodology used to measure BPA, and other experts and labs will take a closer look at and assess independently what is happening, said the study's first author, Roy Girona. Isn't that amazing? Just simply adjusting the way that they measure the amount of BPA into a more accurate form by physically measuring the metabolites that the BPA breaks down to into the body. You're actually physically measuring how much BPA is in the body. They were able to find that the exposure to BPA is actually 44 times worse than what we originally thought it was. And it makes sense because here we are in 2019, living in this world where now we have to start living around what other people are telling us is now the definition of gender. And that gender is not a binary thing. It's not either you're man or you're a woman. It's that you can be anything in between. And there's, upwards, of 50, 60 different categories of gender. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And I'm not trying to say that a person isn't justified in expressing themselves in whatever type of person they think they are, whatever personality you have. If you're a man and you choose to live your life as a woman, then by all means do it. If you're a woman and choose to live your life as a man, then do it. But we can't pretend that the pervasiveness of this is not a biophysical issue that's being influenced by the industrial chemicals that are in our food supply and our air supply and especially our water supply. We cannot pretend that this is not a problem, right? Because it's not just a simple thing of like, well, I'm a man, but really, I'd like to live my life as a woman. It's more to the point of, well, you're a man and you're having those thoughts, but what else is happening in your body? Are you more susceptible to cancer? Do you have a BPA heavier toxic load than you should have? Are you more susceptible? For men, it could be prostate issues. For women, it could be breast cancer. For both sexes, it can be metabolic disorders. It can be type 2 diabetes. It could be type 1 diabetes. It could be autoimmune problems. It could be high levels of inflammation. It could be depression. It could be all kinds of things are happening because of the toxic exposure, along with this whole issue of gender binding. right? And is it a real thing? It absolutely is. You know, we should treat everyone with respect, but we should also not allow our judgment to be so clouded by political correctness that we can't explore the fact that because these chemicals are so ubiquitous in our food system and in our system that they're not having a profound effect on humanity. And this can be a huge problem. This is not just a problem for our generation, but it's a problem for generations to come, if we're even able to have generations to come. Because what you start getting here is this thing called the transgenerational response. So the transgenerational response, you can see it right here. Mouse study finds BPA exposure has transgenerational effects on genes linked to autism. And what that's saying is that BPA exposure doesn't just affect the person who's exposed to BPA, but what happens is that stuff goes deep into your DNA. The BPA goes deep into your DNA and essentially becomes a part of your genetic code. And it turns on and off certain genes to where you start experiencing certain gene polymorphisms that get carried down into future generations of yours. So what this study's talking about here is that what they're finding is that even if, in this case, a rat or a mouse was not exposed to BPA, if that mouse's grandmother or grandparent had exposure to BPA, then the BPA exposure is still being expressed in the current mouse and will continue to be passed down. So this is the whole thing with what's happening now in humans that I think, and this is not, there's no, I don't believe any data specifically to what I'm saying. This is just my own personal hypothesis. But since plastics have been really around for, I don't know what the exact number is, 70, 80 years at this point, since the food industrial revolution, since the processed food industrial revolution that we've been experiencing over the last 100 years, and there's been so many of these chemicals put into food, and then of course our high exposure to plastics over the last 40, 50 years specifically, now we're starting to get into that third generation, because you had people who were born in the, baby boomers who were exposed to it, their children, that's my generation, and then our children now, that BPA load, and none of us have stopped using plastic for anything. More of us are exposed to even more plastic, with the amount of things that we buy, the amount of every Amazon delivery comes with plastic. Most food in the grocery store is wrapped in plastic. The amount of water bottles that are being drank, there's, people are drinking, substantially more water out of plastic water bottles than ever before. And all those water bottles are probably subjected to heat and probably have some exposure of plastic in the water itself. So this problem is only going to get worse. And unfortunately, the only endpoint is going to be potential infertility, potential, human degeneration, if it's not all happening already. So this is a very, very interesting, very interesting topic that really piques my interest and really gets me fired up, and is really why I stress so much the importance of good daily health, but even more than that, of proper detoxification. So make sure you're detoxifying right. Make sure you're eating plenty of protein so that you can support your glutathione levels. Make sure you're taking care of your gut so that you can get rid of this stuff, physically get rid of it. Because if you're not getting rid of it, then it's just circulating in your body and, of course, getting passed down to future generations. But I would love to know what you think. Let me know what you think of this video, of the whole, gender binding BPA situation. Do you see it having a direct effect? Have you changed your plastic habits? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Also, if you're new to the channel, please remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and share the video with everyone you know and love. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.